morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is yet another Thursday, yet another event where I would be hosting one of the subject matter experts from the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency arena. I'm very much excited to take all your questions and put it forward in front of my subject matter expert. First and the foremost thing, I would like to welcome you to this digital event of Unocoin AMA. You guys are watching us live from the YouTube channel of Unocoin, the Facebook page of Unocoin, the LinkedIn page of Unocoin, and Twitter handle of Unocoin. Today is on this day, I would like to take some time out to introduce you to one of the very popular concept of Bitcoin called as Bitcoin white paper. Now, when I talk about Bitcoin white paper, on October 31st, 2008, a Bitcoin white paper was released by a pseudonymous entity called as Satoshi Nakamoto. 31st October 2022, yani this year marked 14 years of existence of Bitcoin white paper. All those who love Bitcoin, all those who are enthusiastic about Bitcoin, and they think that Bitcoin is the future of monetary system of the world, they consider Bitcoin white paper as the Bible. And my subject matter expert is no other than the Jesus of Bitcoin. Today, I'm hosting SunnyRay, who is the president and Unocoin's co-founder. Unocoin is India's first and the most trusted Bitcoin trading platform application. We are available on Google Play Store. We are also available on App Store, and we also have a website. Sunny has worked on multiple projects for different international organizations. He has been part of so many different conferences. He has been an alumnus of University of Toronto, University of Alberta, and it is an absolute privilege to host Sunny. First and the foremost thing, Sunny, I would like to take some time out and introduce our
Mhm.
audience for the general guidelines of this event. Could I do so?
Sure, yeah, please.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, that this year was the 14th year of the white paper of Bitcoin being released, and it's been 14 years that the white Bitcoin white paper has been into existence, and it would continue to be existing for the rest of the history. Today, we're going to talk about a comprehensive study of Bitcoin white paper, the why of Bitcoin white paper, the how, the who, where, what is the purpose of Bitcoin white paper, and talk essentially about what all was discussed in white paper of Bitcoin and where do we see it going further. So that is going to be the topic for today's discussion. This topic is going to be, I think, one of the most educational topic that we have taken up, and it's not just only for the beginners, those who have no understanding of Bitcoin or Bitcoin white paper, but also for somebody who has moderate level of understanding of Bitcoin or who is an expert. So, in case you think that this entire discussion is going to be helpful to somebody you know in your inner circle, you could share this particular link on any of the platform with your community members so that they also get to listen to us and watch us discuss about 14 years of Bitcoin white paper. Since this event is still 5 p.m. IST, time is money. It's very important that you do not shy away and ask your questions. As I previously mentioned, that we are live from 4 different channels of Unocoin. You could be watching us from YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or maybe Twitter. Anywhere you could ask your question. All you need to do is just type in your question as a comment, and your question will reach out to us, and we would take that up. As I mentioned, Sunny would be the one who would be taking up your questions around Bitcoin, and he is an expert of Bitcoin. As I said, Jesus. So I think nobody better than Sunny would be able to answer your question. You can ask questions in English, Hindi, and maybe Bengali because Sunny knows Bengali as well. And last but not the least, all those who are watching us live and who ask questions relevant to the topic or maybe something related to Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general would get a chance to win 10,000 Shiba Inu. Now, you could be a lucky winner out of all those who are watching us live. So, all you need to do is not be hesitant, don't shy away, don't wait for the perfect time. Just put down your question as a form of a comment on any of the social media platform, and you might win 10,000 Shiba Inu. Uh, that is that from my side as far as the housekeeping announcements are considered or the general guidelines for this event is considered. Without much ado, we can start with the discussion of the 14 years of Bitcoin white paper, and we can just dive deeper into the entire concept. Sunny, first thing first, when was the Bitcoin white paper published?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for making this happen. I'm really excited about this. Okay, so to answer your question first is October, I believe 31st, 2008 was when the
Yes.
white paper was released on a crypto mailing list, a cryptography mailing list. The word crypto now means something a bit different than what it used to mean. Before, it used to just imply cryptography, but now people refer to it as the industry at large. And I think it was the cypherpunk mailing list that was really popular back in the 1990s, where it was originally released. And people say that, obviously the code preceded the white paper, and the white paper is a really beautiful, probably the best, if not the best, description of, what Bitcoin is and what its aims are. So yeah, that's a short answer. Hey, Rashmi, do you mind if I take out maybe 30 seconds to answer, or just like to call out a couple of pink elephants? Yeah. So one thing is, someone I noticed is asking, can we buy, sell
Yes.
BTC from Unocoin in India? Short answer, yes. And that's literally why we started the company in 2013 was when we officially launched. I think the domain itself we acquired in 2011, and our goal has always been to essentially, to bridge the gap between fiat currency and Bitcoin, and enable people to buy Bitcoin in India, sell Bitcoin in India. So the short answer to that question is yes. And today we'll talk more about the white paper and Bitcoin, and people might be noticing that this is what we've done quite a few interviews already. And for me, I tend to, even if some people find it a bit boring, maybe not as exciting as the newest project that just came out last week, I find Bitcoin to be the signal amongst the noise. There is a lot of noise in our industry. I am obviously intrigued by a lot of the innovation, but I try and keep my focus on what matters most, which is Bitcoin. And so the other pink elephant I wanted to call out is we had something ginormous happen in our industry in the last few days, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about it, worrying about it. So what I was going to say is, maybe at the end of this session we can field some questions if people have, or we could do another session on it next week, Rashmi, when maybe the dust has settled a bit, and we can create some content around it and help educate people around FTX and what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always a shout out to all those who watch us or listen to us on Twitter Spaces, that in case they feel that there's something that they want us to take up as part of our AMA, we can surely take that up. I mean, the feedbacks and
Cool.
suggestions are always welcome. And since we surpassed 31st October 2022, and it was a very important day for all those who believe in the idea of white paper of Bitcoin, or Bitcoin white paper, or in general the digitization of monetary system, and who are futuristic about how they think of money, I think it was a very important day, and that is the reason why we came up with this AMA. But surely, as you mentioned, yeah, yeah.
Oh no, someone also asked, and we can keep it kind of flowy. I know we have a bunch of questions we've kind of prepared, which I appreciate. But yeah, I love the fact that people are asking questions, and that's kind of the whole point of these types of events. Someone's asking, why do we even need a white paper? I'm new in crypto. Prior to getting into Bitcoin and starting Unocoin and all that, I spent nearly 10 years in academic and research world, in more specifically in robotics. But so the concept of white paper, I think it emerged from the field of academia, and it's very common amongst professors and researchers to create white papers around certain topics and whatnot. I think the idea initially came from there, but in essence, all a white paper is, it's like a plain English text version of some highly technical matter, right? And in this case, today we're talking about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is, the world's first open source, decentralized digital currency and network and payment network. And so the Bitcoin white paper, now what Bitcoin's been around for 14, the white paper's been around for 14 years. And so the white paper does a beautiful job once again of kind of describing what is happening in the code, and what is Bitcoin, and what are the goals and aims of it, and what problems is it trying to solve. Yeah. And I was also thinking, Rashmi, maybe, I don't know if we're going to have a chance to do a screen share or something. We can go back and forth between the white paper again if time permits. Yeah, but we can keep going.
I think, Sunny, in case you want to, and if it is feasible, we don't mind because we have all set of audience. There are somebody who has, who do not have an understanding of Bitcoin or Bitcoin white paper, or would find the entire conversation too technical for them to understand. So I think
Mm.
we don't mind you sharing the screen so that everybody is on the same page and we cater to every set of audience. In the meantime,
Cool.
maybe yeah. In the meantime, if you want to check the feasibility, I can put another question
Yeah,
or.
I will just keep going with the questions, and if there's a point where it feels important, I can just do a screen share.
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. So
Cool.
we talked about when was it released? How was it released? Was it through a seminar? Was it a person who presented it in a TED talk, or it was a bunch of students? He was a professor, she was a professor, they were professors, they were scientists, they were. How was it
Y-
presented? How it came out to the world?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, so the name on the white paper is Satoshi Nakamoto. However, it's kind of widely recognized that the name Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym. So a pseudonym means that it's not the name of an actual person, or group of people. And so to this day, we still do not know. Nobody knows the actual, identity of Satoshi Nakamoto. He, she, them, it chose to remain anonymous, and to this day, like I said, nobody knows exactly who Satoshi Nakamoto is. People have some guesses. They think that it might be this person or that person. I also have mine, but I think I'd probably refrain from sharing too much about what my thoughts are, mainly because I think a lot of people also respect that Satoshi chose to be anonymous and has accomplished it thus far. And like I said, to this day, there's no kind of like hard proof as to who he or she is. But yeah, it was by an individual named Satoshi Nakamoto. And oh, sorry,
Okay.
I was going to say the other question was, you said how was it released? Not at a conference. Like I said in the first question, it was released in it's called the cypherpunk mailing list. So it was like just a simple email mailing list that a lot of cypherpunks, people that are really into coding and freedom, I guess you could say, and have been for a very long time, was where Satoshi chose to initially share it. And yeah, and then the rest is history.
But when you say that Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonymous
Hmm.
entity, it actually doesn't
Hmm.
refer to a particular person, or it might refer to a particular person. And when you say that it was released through a simple email,
Yeah.
right? So could not we trace the location or the IP address or the MAC address of that system? Because I think it's very easy to track anything which is available on the internet. If something is available in the internet, it can be traced back. So did we not try enough, or did somebody not try enough, or it was actually anonymous, or because of some political
That's a good
agendas,
question.
it has been kept anonymous.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know what you mean about your comments around like anything online can be tracked and email. But I mean, even for example, email, right? Like let's just say you go to some internet cafe, you don't use your credit card for the interaction, you go to Gmail or something and you create some random email, abc@gmail.com, and then you post something on that. I mean, IP address now doesn't apply, or you didn't really apply with your ID to get the email. So there is a lot of quite easy ways to hide your identity if you really wanted to do this. And like I said, because he or she or they chose not to even use their real name, there's a lot of it's really, really difficult to guess. Now, again, I don't want to say too much. Let's just say there's some very interesting YouTube documentaries that people could probably check out to get some glimpses. So people have gone really deep into this, and they've done a lot of research and deducing based on lots of factors. And but again, a lot of people who've been in Bitcoin prefer not to even attempt to dox Satoshi, just because we respect him, her that much, that we like the fact that he's anonymous or she's anonymous, just because why do we like it? I don't know. I think it's one of the biggest gifts that Satoshi gave to us. See, I mean, you referred to me kindly as like the Jesus of Bitcoin. I mean, I definitely am not at all. But I mean, but we feel like we are. Like all of us feel like we're somehow really important in the Bitcoin space. And I think part of why we feel that way is because Satoshi never took credit for it, never showed his face or her face, and never, claimed that they were the one that made Bitcoin happen. So by doing that so early in the development phase of Bitcoin, I think Satoshi almost like gifted it to all of us, and it's kind of like the world's money now, and it's the internet's money, and not some person or whatever. Yeah. So I think it serves the decentralization narrative, and I think it's a very interesting part of Bitcoin.
We have so many comments. Pahadi World started. I think Pahadi World uh, comment in the commented hi, and then there is Chauhan Jeevan. Then we have Jaquin Weather, Money Blueprint. I just want to give a shout out and say that thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And in case you have any question, you could also uh, comment in the same way as you have hide us. And there are so many other questions as well. The recent one is from Rahul Raskar. Why cryptocurrencies are dropping?
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, I almost feel like, I mean, I did mention that we would take on any questions. I'll try and touch on it really quickly, but I really think that if we want to go deep into some of these larger issues or questions, we'll need more time. And since we titled this one Bitcoin White Paper, we'll keep it on topic. But in essence, what is the word? Hypothetification or something? It's so essentially a lot of Bitcoin companies, exchanges, they've been doing some funny things with their systems. They've been essentially, I mean, long story short, from what I can kind of gather, there's this very large Bitcoin exchange called FTX, and supposedly they've been using a hedge fund that is also their kind of not parent entity, but a very well connected entity. I think it has the same founders. They were using their token, FTT token, as essentially a means of siphoning customer funds away from the exchange and into speculative bets. And so, long story short, they were using customer funds to do to try and make more money for the company, and I think it kind of blew up in their face. And we've seen that now happen. Sort of similar types of stories take place with Celsius and Luna, and it's been a bit of a domino effect. And this is a really interesting space. Unocoin, we're probably one of the oldest Bitcoin crypto companies in the world, now, with us being around for almost 10 years, and we've seen a lot. And so all I'll say is that yeah, just be really careful out there. It's still very much the wild west. Do your own research, and I've said now publicly many times is that if there's anything that you're going to take seriously, you should probably take Bitcoin seriously. Learn it as much as you can to the nth degree, and then once you kind of grasp that, then consider putting a tiny bit of money, like 0.1% of your net worth or something, or of your cash flow, and just play with it, learn about it, and then if it makes sense, if it resonates, then scale up. And like I said, is always minimize your exposure to other cryptocurrencies, because like if you think Bitcoin is risky, the other things are in my view significantly more risky. And so yeah, so anyway, so maybe that gives a bit of background, but let's maybe go back to Bitcoin questions or the Bitcoin white paper. I see someone else has another question. Is
Yes.
Bitcoin give any dividend? Yeah. Someone's asking, does Bitcoin give any dividends? Um, no, I mean, in short, Bitcoin is not. It doesn't. It's important to note that Bitcoin is not a company. So this is kind of hard for people to understand. Is that the white paper was released, the code was released, but it was released in a similar way that you can imagine the internet is that the internet doesn't really have an owner. It doesn't have a CEO. I mean, everybody's kind of the owner and the CEO. And so Bitcoin is very similar in that sense. And yeah, and so there is no dividend, because it's not actually a company. It strives to be more a internet money, like a global form of frictionless money that has no third parties, no middlemen, and yeah, and it's kind of digital gold in some ways. It's a network where you can transfer the bitcoins across the network, again, without third parties and with very low fees. And it's again, it's a marvelous invention that I think many people have been awed by, but then a lot of people also kind of just pivot and do their own thing and their own token. And a lot of people find it confusing, and they think, oh, I lost my opportunity with Bitcoin, so I'll capture it with this other token. And I think people make a big mistake in doing that, is that I think there's still a lot of upside for Bitcoin. It's come down quite a bit. I think 1 year ago we hit our all-time high of $68,000. Today we're at 16, I think, or 17,000. So it's come down a lot. But again, if you study kind of the history of Bitcoin, we've seen several times where we've seen dips like this, and Bitcoin comes roaring back. But again, do your own research. Yeah, let's keep moving with the questions.
Yeah, so as you mentioned that it doesn't belong to one particular entity or one particular organization or one particular
Yep.
university or institute.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say that it was released by Satoshi Nakamoto, do we have any idea? Was it actually written and authored by Satoshi Nakamoto, or it was written or documented by somebody else, and somebody happened to see it and published to the external world with an anonymous entity? I mean, the reason why I'm asking this question is because when I was researching around this thing, there were a lot of people who asked about how could they release their own token, or what needs to be included in a white paper in case they wish to release their own token. And that is where a lot of people are also asking, uh, is it actually good to be anonymous and release a white paper so that somebody doesn't have to, proclaim their identity or take it out to the world and say that I released Rashmi token and I am the author of Rashmi token because I wrote a Rashmi white paper, something like that.
I don't think I fully understand the question, but I think the short answer is that from my understanding and from everything I read, Satoshi did write the white paper.
Okay.
Um, and the point around I don't know, anonymity, I guess, is that it's another important point to understand is that the entire project is open source. So open source means that even though we do not know the name of the actual person who created all of this, the work itself, the white paper, the code base for the Bitcoin network, all of it is open source, meaning anything we talk about today, anybody can go online and verify whether it's factual or not. And yeah, and all of it is public, and open source also implies that not only can anybody review what's happening, anybody can also participate in the network. So let's say tomorrow you chose to become a Bitcoin miner, and I see someone asked a question around Bitcoin mining as well. You could just become a Bitcoin miner. If you wanted to start a Bitcoin exchange like Unocoin, you could do so as well. It's not there's no permission you have to ask Satoshi or anything like that. Yeah, but I don't know if I fully answered your question. I kind of lost it, but but your first part of it, was Satoshi actually the author? I think most people believe he or she was. In terms of writing your own white paper, I don't know if I have advice along those lines. Like, look, Unocoin, probably the number one question we get is, when is Unocoin launching a coin? And if anyone thinks that we don't know how to launch a coin, think again, because it's literally 4 lines of code, right? Anybody can launch a token. You can launch a Rashmi coin by this afternoon or whatever, or by tomorrow morning if you wanted to. It's not hard. But for us, it's not always about just doing something because you can. It's about doing something that's right and that's morally ethical. And we've never, even though there's a lot of exchanges out there that have their own token and there's a lot of justification behind having it, we've shied away from it because we have concerns around what it might mean, what the risks are, and we still don't believe that it's a risk worth taking. So we've shied away from writing our own white paper. So I probably don't have the best advice on writing white papers. All I can say is people should read the Bitcoin white paper. And quite frankly, I think that's the only one you need to read, like, over and over again, like the Bible, like you said. Yeah.
Yes. So as you mentioned that uh, it covers a lot of things, and in case you want to read a white paper, you should go through the white paper of Bitcoin. I mean, the Bitcoin white paper. We have talked extensively about the day it went out and was released for the public, who created it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk
Hmm.
about what exactly is the content of that white paper, what exactly is mentioned in that white paper. Because again, if we try to read and understand, it could be very difficult for somebody to understand. So maybe we could just put it in very
Sure.
easy terms. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I would encourage people to read it, to glance over the whole thing. It's about 9 pages long. It's not that. I think this it's about maybe 3,500 words or so. And for most people, I would say just read the abstract. It's literally just a paragraph long. We read it, I think, in our previous AMA that we did, right? Just because, like, for me, it's like a mantra. Like, you just kind of read it over and over again, and it gives you kind of the direction that Satoshi was going. I think the abstract is very telling. But yeah, there's a couple of sections. So it starts with like a beautiful kind of introduction, which once again touches on the problem, right? And the main problem that Satoshi cites is the existence of middlemen, of like organizations that sit between, let's say, you and I. If I'm in Canada, you're in India, and I want to send you money using the existing system, it needs to hop from bank to bank to bank to bank, and by the time it gets to you, it's a week later, and maybe 10% of the money's gone. And so it just seems very silly that in a day and age where I can just click on a video camera, talk to you seamlessly, that all of a sudden I'd need to, kind of do this whole roundabout process to send money or value. So there's a beautiful introduction. The second section talks about the transactions, right, and how the transactions work. The third section of the white paper is about the timestamp server, which is a critical part of the network. There's also a section on proof of work, which many people argue is kind of the key innovation behind Bitcoin. And people who've been following this space for decades, they'll tell you that one of the biggest problems that people were trying to solve back in the day was this problem, the double spend problem, right? Which is like, let's say we created some new coin, like you said, Rushmi coin, and you send me one Rushmi coin. How do I know that that one coin you sent me, you didn't send it to your mom and your friend and Satvik and some other people? Like, how do you not do a double spend? And so the whole concept behind Bitcoin is how do you prevent that happening, but do it in a way that doesn't need a middleman, right? The fifth section is about the network and kind of the steps required for that network to operate. The sixth section is about incentives, which is also very interesting. And I think people who are into like things like game theory and all of that will find it very intriguing. The seventh is about disk space. Eighth is about kind of like a simplified payment verification. And there's topics such as like Merkle roots and Merkle branches and all these really interesting kind of like hashes and things that we could actually go deeper into. Maybe we can even bring like an even more technical subject matter expert onto one of our AMAs and go through this line by line and do a breakdown. And then it goes a little bit into privacy calculations. It has a little bit about the actual, like the probability of of an attacker and how they could actually, there's a lot of like technicalities, and then they convert that into code and essentially concludes. And then it finishes off with like a reference section with, I think, about 8 different people that Satoshi cites as sources or references. Yeah. Hey, I was gonna say, Rashmi, there's a couple people asking. I know we were gonna stick to our topic here, but should we just quickly address some of these questions?
Sunny, you can take up anything that you want.
Yeah. Okay.
I would make
Let's
sure that
just.
it is visible to the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can make it visible, but okay. Someone, Susant, is asking. Okay, well, let me just quickly, because I don't want to leave people hanging either, right? Because we were always asking people to ask questions, and so now that people are, let's make sure we get to them. If we get chart of the assets, it's great for study in Unocoin Exchange. Yes, so if you log on to our website on unocoin.com, you can see that we do actually have charts for all of the assets, and even in the app itself, if you click on, there's a chart button near the bottom, you can see all the charts as well. So there's that. There's another gentleman named Aditya Mani. He's asking, haven't exchanges like FTX used the funds to create value? Question mark. How else one can create value if there is no concept of a central bank interest? Ooh. That's a big question. Haven't exchanges like FTX used the funds to create value? That's a great question. So let's say I mean, yes, maybe they tried to create value with it, but I think the reason they're in trouble now is that they were unsuccessful in their endeavor. And I would argue that it's also morally wrong to take your customer funds, and especially if the customers believe that they are sending those funds to you and those funds are to be held until they're ready to trade them or whatever, and then I take those funds and then I say I have a better way I can make money off of it, and I use those funds. To me, that seems a bit morally bankrupt, perhaps. And so that's where I think things went wrong. And then your second question was how else one can create value if there is no concept of a central bank. I think good exchanges just don't try and create value out of their customer funds. The value that exchanges bring is the fact that you can exchange your one asset for another, and we essentially charge a nominal fee, a tiny fee of I think 0.5% collectively across maker and taker. And so that's how we, I guess you could say, create value. But when we take the customer funds and try and make money with it, that's where I think things can go really wrong. And Unocoin always stays away from practices like that. And that's why we're around, 9-10 years later, even though much larger companies have come and gone. Okay, another great questions, by the way. I really appreciate these, and keep them coming. And we're taking a little detour here, but this is quite possibly one of the biggest, if not the biggest, event that's taken place, if you ask me, in the last 10 years. And I know a lot of people are struggling out there, and a lot of people had money maybe with FTX, and so my heart goes out to you. Okay, so hello, can Bitcoin survive without miners? Is mining required after the last BTC is issued? Wow, another great question. This is Randir Singh, who's asking this from Facebook. Can Bitcoin survive without miners? That's a good question. I think the short answer, in my view, is no. Bitcoin mining is an integral part of the Bitcoin process, and again, we've done a couple of videos on this. I'll just quickly touch on it. But Bitcoin mining is essentially the process of validating transactions on the network. So validating, the integrity of transactions. So when I again send some money, let's say from this side of the world to the other side of the world, from me to Rashmi, miners act as like validators for those transactions. Now, I just finished saying that Bitcoin doesn't have third parties, and then here I am talking about miners and talking about these third parties. So that might be a bit confusing for a lot of people, but the best way I'll try and explain it is that like gold, right? So in gold, you have people that mine the gold, but once the gold is mined and released into the world, it's essentially decentralized, and there's no central party that needs to approve those transactions and whatnot, right? So mining kind of works like that, and mining also like the miners do not need to know who the participants in the network are. All the participants in the network are actually pseudonymous. So there is no identity that's actually tied to the Bitcoin network. That's also important to note. So the whole Bitcoin network is independent of identity. It works using something called private key and public key cryptography. So, you could essentially interact with the Bitcoin network, and your public key is essentially just a string of like alphanumeric, like AX 1 2 3 7 5 B, whatever, and that is your kind of your name on the network. And so anyway, so is mining required after the last BTC is issued? That's another great question. So miners get rewarded with Bitcoin is limited in nature. There's only 21 million that will ever exist, but new Bitcoin that is released into the world is released from the network itself. And whenever somebody successfully solves one of the mining puzzles or whatever it is every 10 minutes, they actually get rewarded new Bitcoin that come into existence. So I think what somebody's asking is, in by 2140, all of the Bitcoin will be mined because Bitcoin is limited. So what happens after that point? How does the Bitcoin network continue working? And I think the short answer is fees, right? So Bitcoin miners would essentially introduce, fees to the network to keep just to stay in business. And so I don't think Bitcoin will survive without mining. A Kudal vlog. So Kudal wrote here, white paper can changeable or it fix when coin launch. Okay, so good question. So the white paper can be changeable. Yes. So there's only one original white paper that was launched in whatever the year we said, 98. Was it not 90? Did we say 98? When did we say it was again?
2008. 2008.
2008. I'm losing
Yeah.
track here. 2008. So there's only one original white paper that was launched back then, and there's been no, as far as I know, like revisions to it or changes to the white paper. So the white paper kind of just is. The code, however, obviously over the last 9-10 years, because it's an open source project and there's hundreds, thousands of developers around the world that contribute to the code, it has changed, and it has upgraded itself, and it's ossified itself as well in some sense, in the sense that it's like it doesn't change, which is one of its beautiful things. But it is subject to change. So if, for example, if there's like a issue with something and the coders needed to fix it, they could get in there and fix it. But fundamentally, I would say Bitcoin has remained Bitcoin. And there's been a big push to keep Bitcoin as Bitcoin, and things such as, we need faster, cheaper transactions are actually being done on what they called layer 2 solutions. So not at the Bitcoin core level, but we could even talk about Lightning on a different call entirely, because Lightning is such an interesting concept, and I'm super excited about it. And Unocoin has plans to obviously bring Bitcoin Lightning transactions as well to our platform very soon. But yes, so the white paper, I guess you could foreseeably change it, and you could, because it's just a document, a PDF document. But no, the white paper for Bitcoin has kind of remained unchanged, and and most people kind of keep it that way. Okay, and then we have another question from Susan. Chart is not there in Unocoin app. Is it possible to please add? So maybe we can point this gentleman to how to open up the charts in Unocoin, and maybe I'll just keep going with the next question, and I'll just pull this up real quick and show the person.
Yeah, so it was quite insightful that it could be changed, but original white paper remains the same that was released by Satoshi Nakamoto back in 2008. Sunny, you talked about different sections, like when you were talking about what exactly is covered under the white paper. You talked about proof of work, and now, September 15th, there was Ethereum merge, and people were talking a lot about how the entire transition has happened from proof of work to proof of stake, and now these two terms are like too technical in nature as well. So when we say
Sorry,
proof of
Rajbi, Susan, I just don't want to leave him hanging. Susan, just if you're having trouble with seeing the charts in the app, and they are there, I believe it's a button on the bottom left once you go into the asset. But if you're having trouble with that, you can just go to our website. Just go to a computer if you can, and log in, and you should be able to see the charts there. Sorry, Rashmi, keep going, keep going.
not an issue. So we talked about a lot of other sections, what lot of sections apart from the abstract that is discussed in the white paper, right? In that you have talked about proof of work. Now proof of work again is a too technical term, and most of the people do not actually understand what proof of work is. So can we also talk and touch base upon what exactly is proof of work and how it is relatable when we think of Bitcoin?
Yeah, actually, since we're studying the white paper, there's actually one, two, three, four paragraphs. I don't have to read all of them, but what if I just read the first and last one really quickly? Yeah? And then it might give people a quick idea. So, proof of work. To implement a distributed timestamp server on a peer-to-peer basis, we will need to use a proof of work system similar to Adam Back's Hashcash rather than newspaper or Usenet posts. The proof of work involves scanning for a value that, when hashed, such as with SHA-256, the hash begins with a number of 0 bits. The average work required is exponential in the number of 0 bits required and can be verified by executing a single hash. This actually sounds far more complicated than I think most people probably want to go into, but I'm going to keep reading because I think for some people this will resonate, and it's probably the most accurate description of proof of work. And then I'll try my best to kind of back channel and describe it a bit better, right, in my words. Not better, but just in my words. For our timestamp network, we implement the proof of work by incrementing a nonce in the block until a value is found that gives the block's hash the required 0 bits. Once the CPU effort has been expended to make it satisfy the proof of work, the block cannot be changed without redoing the work. As later blocks are chained after it, the work to change the block would include redoing all the blocks after it. I'll just skip to the last paragraph. To compensate for increasing hardware speed and varying interest in running nodes over time, the proof of work difficulty is determined by a moving average targeting an average number of blocks per hour. If they're generated too fast, the difficulty increases. Okay, so that's a lot of words. So, I mean, I think the big question that most people are wondering is what's the difference between proof of work and proof of stake? So again, I'm probably going to mess it up a little bit, but I'll try my best. So proof of work, what it's essentially doing is, so I talk a little bit about Bitcoin mining, right? So the analogy I used in our previous AMA was that Bitcoin mining is analogous to real mining, right? In the sense that in real mining, you have a big mountain, you have gold inside the mountain, you have axes and picks, and then over time, it gets harder and harder to get the gold out of the mountain because the gold is deeper and deeper. So you need better tools over time, right? And you essentially have to work to get the gold out of the mountain. So in Bitcoin mining, you also have to do work, but the work is not like physically picks and axes and mountains and all that. Instead, the mountain is more like this very complicated mathematical puzzle that these computers are trying to solve. And it's not even a complicated mathematical puzzle. It's actually a very simple math puzzle, but it's a type of problem that computers have a very hard time solving. And so so the only way that computers can really solve these types of problems is by guessing. Oh, it's not right. Guessing again, guessing again, guessing again. And that act of guessing until it finds the right answer is work. It's like because the computer needs electricity and it needs energy, and it has to process all of this information. So it's actually work that the computer has to do. And then once one of the miners figure out what the answer to that problem is, they get rewarded with the new Bitcoin. So that's why people love Bitcoin, because at the core of it, there's like work that you have to do to uncover the Bitcoin. It's not just free. It's not like, oh, you just, get it for no reason. Proof of stake is a bit different. So proof of stake kind of does away with the concept of Bitcoin mining, and they replace miners with stakers. And what stakers is somebody that holds Ethereum. Let's say I have, 5 Ethereum or Ether or whatever. I can stake that Ether. And all the staking means, it just locks it up in a virtual kind of way. And now the stakers act as validators for transactions in the network. And so in that case, there's no real work that's being done. The computers aren't solving puzzles. There's no energy, And instead, it's just the people who hold the most amount of Ether or whatever that token is get to essentially generate new tokens. So again, if you ask me, I think proof of work is far more, I don't know, it's just more beautiful, it's more elegant, it's more resistant, it's more reliable, it's more intelligent. I personally think that I think that proof of work is the most exciting kind of part, one of the most exciting parts of the crypto movement. And I sometimes do question, projects for moving away from it. And I wonder, does it actually serve people, or does it just serve the people who have Ether, for example, right? But anyway, so I think proof of work is kind of a complicated topic. In essence, it's based on Adam Back's Hashcash, which people, if they know about, they can do some research on. And so what Satoshi did that was really marvelous was he took this idea of Hashcash and married it with this like decentralized network of mining and Bitcoin essentially. And it was never done before, and it solved that problem of double spend. Yeah. Oh, we got more questions coming in here. This is awesome. Bitcoin blockchain size. I don't know what that means exactly. Oh, maybe how many gigabytes. So if we looked at all the transactions from the beginning of time, how big is that file? That's a great question. I don't have the answer actually at the top of my head. I prefer not to guess, but I'm sure you can just Google that and probably get an answer fairly quickly. But yet another great question. And then Kudal is asking, if I have Bitcoin, there are documents created on my name that give some Bitcoin. If I lost my wallet, key forget, there are no options to recover. How I recover, please give me some information. Okay, that's another great question. So in Bitcoin, there's this concept again, like I said before, called public key, private key cryptography. And okay, so right now I'm not talking about exchanges. Okay, so not talking about Unocoin or Binance or FTX or whatever. I'm talking about just Bitcoin. So in the world of Bitcoin, there's like private keys and public keys, and the public key is kind of like it's kind of like your email address. It's kind of like the account number on your bank checkbook. You can give it to someone else, and they can't steal your emails, they can't steal your money, but they can send you emails, they can send you money. And so that's kind of like what a public key is. But behind every public key, there's also a private key. A private key is like your bank password, it's like your Gmail password, it's like the thing that you don't share with anyone. And if you do, your account could be compromised, and there might not be some Google office that you can call, because in Bitcoin it's even more different in that sense, because I said there's no CEO, there is no office, there's nobody that's kind of answerable. So with Bitcoin comes a great, with what is it, great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man. Spider-Man's uncle. I think with Bitcoin that's also very true, is that if you are getting into Bitcoin, I always say do way more research than you think you need to do before you even buy your first Satoshi, because education is, it's not free, because it costs you your time, but it's a good way to minimize loss on the back end. And yes, so if you do forget your private keys and you haven't backed it up and you don't have it somewhere or whatever, then the responsibility is on you. It's the equivalent of you burying gold in the middle of a field somewhere and you forget where it is. You can't call the gold CEO or some department. You have to essentially go back and find the gold. Yeah, let's keep going. So, Rashmi, but these questions are great, guys. Keep it coming.
So, Sunny, we talked about extensively about the proof of work concept. If you talk about, you know, Bitcoin white paper, it has been with us since 14 years. How has it changed the way we transact money? How has it changed the way we look at money? How has it changed the way we think of digitization of money? And do you think that after 14 years, the next 14 years is going to change in a positive direction? People will be accepting it, or how do you see the adaptability of this?
Mm, I think it's had a very positive impact on at least my outlook of money. And again, I don't want to go into it because we've talked extensively about money and the history of money and Bitcoin and all that, but I do believe that the Bitcoin is a bit of a revolution. We've talked in the past as well about how money is just one of those things that literally everybody that I've ever met on planet Earth, almost everybody, is they want more of it. And you can never have enough of it. Um, People, like I say, get into divorces, they get into wars over money. Yet when you ask most people what is money, they don't really have an answer for you. So to me, the fact that Bitcoin gets you to ask that question, which is like, what really is money? Like, is it gold? Is it fiat? Is it rupees, dollars? Like pieces of paper with people's face on it? Like, how did that become money? Like, where did that happen? Like, I don't know about most people, but like I knew I had those questions, and I would never get sound answers to those questions. And even I, as people know my background, I I'm an engineer, but I also became a financial advisor and a broker for 4 or 5 years, and just in quest of trying to understand money. And I felt even more confused by many of the topics. So to me, Bitcoin is that kind of like ray of hope, that the ray of sunshine, right? That's kind of peeking through the dark clouds.
Bitcoin is ray of sun. It's
Ray of
sunny ray.
sun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Sunny
see.
ray.
Yeah, I love Bitcoin, and I do think that again, what'll happen 14 years from now, I don't know. I think I don't have like a crystal ball or anything like that, but I hope, and we're working towards making it so that Bitcoin can be around for a very long time, if not forever. I think a lot of people recognize that this technology is here to stay. I mean, just by way of example, like when we got into Bitcoin, everybody thought we were crazy, but today you see people like even the richest man on earth, Elon Musk, talking about Bitcoin and Dogecoin and cryptocurrencies, and you have countries like El Salvador, and I think Laguna in Switzerland, some city had recently adopted Bitcoin as its currency, and I heard there's 3 more countries and 30 more countries rather that are about to adopt it, and this and that. And so I think hedge funds and financial, like Fidelity, which is just like a huge financial services company, they're now offering Bitcoin. PayPal is offering Bitcoin. I mean, it's kind of like obvious now, but yeah, but I do believe that Bitcoin is the future of money. I don't think it's going to be an easy road. I think it's going to be actually quite challenging. I think there's going to be a lot of elements, let's call it, that try and maybe thwart, or that try and throw Bitcoin off its trajectory. But at the same time, I'm very positive, and I really, Bitcoin's given me a lot of hope in humanity, like just the existence of it, and the fact that we can try and, like, I mean, it just seems so audacious, right? It's like Bitcoin, like, what is this Bitcoin? Like, who do you think you are, Satoshi? Like, trying to recreate money. But I think just the fact that we've already come so far, it's been around now for what, 14 years, and we're still talking about it, is a testament to its success. And I believe also that every single day that Bitcoin doesn't die makes it considerably stronger and more resilient. And so yeah, so I don't know. I'm very excited about it. I think I think if Bitcoin is successful, it'll become boring, right? I think that will be its ultimate fate, is that, and I'm waiting for that day when Bitcoin is super boring, because to me that'll signal that it's kind of found its mark. But until then, it's just like one day after another of like just craziness, right? Like there's not a single day that's boring in Bitcoin land.
Okay, so wherever Bitcoin is today, it has taken 14 years since the white paper was released, and it is here wherever it is, right? Do you think it has come far to what you thought it could have, or do you still see that it is running a slow race, and the adoption could have happened in maybe two years, 5 years, and it should not have taken that this much amount of time?
Yes and no. I think yes, as in I obviously would not have left my career and my life and dedicated what the better part of the last 10 years to Bitcoin and India and crypto and all this if I didn't believe in, more specifically, Bitcoin. Um, but and I think at the beginning of last year I was on Tone Vase's like January 1st YouTube video. So there's like record of this, but I was on a show with like 10 other people, and Tone Vase was asking us, what's your prediction for 2021? So last year. And my prediction was that some country was going to adopt Bitcoin as their reserve currency. And I said it almost tongue in cheek, like if that comes true, I'll just come off as being like a savant, like a genius. But I kind of didn't expect it to happen, and it did. And so, like I said, Bitcoin always kind of, it never ceases to surprise you. And but yeah, but I mean, did I think that in less than 10 years you'd have like the wealthiest person on earth talking about Dogecoin and this and that? And I don't think so. I don't think I would have thought that it would be that successful in just 10 years. Like I kind of figured it would take a bit longer, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something. But I don't know. But it's, yeah, so yes and no. I don't know how to answer that question. Next question.
we have few more questions. I think boy Ragnarok has just sent us a hi. So in case you have a question, you can ask. You can ask. We have another question from Kudal. I think in case you want to take that up,
Sure,
Sunny,
yeah.
directly.
So
Yeah.
he said, I am asking a stupid question. No, there's no stupid question. And the thing is, if you're having a question, Kudal, I'm sure other people are probably thinking the same thing. So thank you for your courage to ask. Anyways, I am asking a stupid question. INR, USDT currency, Bitcoin, also digital currency. Why Bitcoin value huge? So the price of one Bitcoin when I first heard about it was, I think, about $5 or something, or $10. Today, each Bitcoin is worth 16 or $1,000 or something, right? So I think if the question is, if there's like INR, then you have USDT, which is like USD essentially, but with Bitcoin characteristics, but it's USD. Then why has Bitcoin gone up so much, I think is the question. So in my view, the short answer is that, well, lots of reasons, right? But one important thing, Kudal, to keep in mind is that the value of anything is determined by supply and demand, right? I think all people, or most people, know that, or they kind of intuitively sense that, or they've read it somewhere, right? And so as the supply of something goes up, the price could actually come down, right? So meaning if you have infinite supply of something, the price could be technically zero. So with fiat currencies like INR, USDT, it's important to know that the supply of those currencies is not limited. So I read a interesting stat just the other day that said that in the last 1 year, the United States has printed 40% of all the US dollars that's ever been in existence, or something like that. Like, that's just crazy to think, right? So you had all these USDs in the world, and then just in a year, just a couple of people decided, and now they have 40% more. Bitcoin, that can't happen, right? So the number of Bitcoin, it cannot go to trillions of Bitcoin or whatever. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence, and that's literally impossible to change. And as you kind of read more about Bitcoin and study the white paper and the code and all that, you'll see why we say that. But it's impossible to change that, unless obviously all the participants in the network decide to, or not all, but a majority of them, or more than 50% of them, actually decide that they wanted to change that. But why would they? They wouldn't, because that would negatively affect everyone in the Bitcoin network. So the fact that Bitcoin is limited, and the other ones are not, is one factor. So that talks to the supply side of the equation. And then on the flip side, if you look at the demand side, Bitcoin offers these kind of elements that just didn't even exist in money, right? So I talked about open source. Nothing else is open source in the way Bitcoin is. You can review the code, everything I'm saying, you can verify it. Bitcoin is also decentralized, right? With INR, USDT, they're through central banks and governments, and you have political figures that can influence the amount of money that gets printed, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all this like kind of centralization that exists there, where in Bitcoin it doesn't. And the fact that it's permissionless, right? Anybody can partake in Bitcoin. You can partake in the coding part of it, or the mining part of it, or running a business, or owning Bitcoin, or whatever it is. And then one of the most important parts of Bitcoin is that you can also send Bitcoin as easy as you can send an email. So I can zap Bitcoin, like I said, from Canada to India, or vice versa, just like an email, at the click of a button. Almost instantaneously you can zap it, and there's no middleman. And again, that is valuable to people. And so as more and more people see value in Bitcoin, they acquire more Bitcoin, the demand goes up. So you have a curve where the demand is going up astronomically, the supply is limited, and then the price has done what it's done. In the last 10 years, it's been the best performing asset that's ever existed. And so I personally believe that trend will continue, perhaps not at the same, rapid rate, maybe faster, who knows, right? I mean, if it kind of depends on to some extent on how much money governments print and all that too, right? So if they continue what they've been doing in the last 2 years, it could be argued that Bitcoin could just be getting started. But do your own research. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I think all of these questions were amazing. None of these were stupid. Don't ever think, कभी सोचना भी नहीं है कि कोई भी सवाल stupid हो सकता है, क्योंकि you are always somewhere in the race. Nobody is at the last. And I think the more you understand or more you try to understand about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, this arena, the more you realize that there's so much more to learn, right? And I think everybody is on the path. Somebody is just ahead of you, somebody is behind you, and it's always good that you keep on moving. That is what the spirit should be. I think we have come to the end of this AMA. As this AMA was for 1 hour, I we took so many interesting questions from the topic. We D2 to some other concepts as well. But over and all, it was a very good session. I would like to thank each one of you who could join us, spare some time out, commented your question, came up with multiple questions. It was amazing. Thank you for joining the CE event of Unocoin AMA. Next Tuesdays and Thursdays, we again would be coming up with some set of AMAs with subject matter experts like Satvik and Sunny. Today, we discussed extensively about the Bitcoin white paper and had a comprehensive discussion around what it was since it was first. Released to the world. You could catch another AMA anytime. You could catch this AMA and revisit the answers that those which were given by Sunny. Gentle reminder to all those who have asked questions. Now is the time for us to uh, uh, open out the names of the people who have won 10,000 Shiba Inu. You would be notified through the direct message. So keep on waiting. If you have commented through YouTube, you would be able to get a notification through YouTube, or you could claim your 10,000 Shiba Inu from Twitter Spaces, YouTube, Instagram, or any of the social media platform. The next time we are going to have another AMA. In case you think that you want us to cover something, your valuable inputs are always very much appreciated. Would love to host AMAs that you want us to host. And in case you want to expand your knowledge around cryptocurrencies, digital assets, CBDC, you could always go back to our YouTube channel and watch our videos so that your knowledge is increased around cryptocurrencies. I hope to have you again in the next set of AMAs. Until then, take care of yourself. Thank you, Sunny, for being the subject matter expert with us for today.
Yeah.
And
Rashmi, I wanted to also say thank you to all of our customers and everyone as well. We've seen a big spike in our volume, and people are coming back to trade with Unocoin in a big way. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's supporting us as well.
love Bitcoin, love Unocoin. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin.
Get a systematic buying plan from the Unocoin app to get your Bitcoin today. Download the Unocoin app.
Crypto products are unregulated and could be highly volatile. Please be aware of the risks before investing.